Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Exploring Language Learning Strategies. My name is Oscar Gomez. I'm your host today in this podcast. And today we're going to be talking about the results of five very interesting studies all related to inferential listening skills. So we're going to be exploring how all of these studies contribute to a better understanding of how learners, particularly those studying English as a foreign language, can improve their inferential listening skills. So remember that in this episode we'll be reporting key findings and conclusions from the studies, and also we will be talking a little bit about the implication for language learning, particularly when using technological tools, especially the application voice screen. Especially this application because it's one application that we're going to be discussing a little bit later on this presentation, and it's one of the application used for delving a little bit more into inferential skills. So let's get started. The first study we'll be discussing about looks at the role of auditory working memory capacity in listening comprehension. So it specifically compares the first language that we will call L1 and the second language, which we will call L2, auditory working memory capacities and their effects on both literal and inferential listening comprehension. So, in this particular study, it was found that L2 learners with higher auditory working memory capacity were significantly better at making inferences during listening tasks. In contrast, when it comes to L1 learners, they were able to rely more on contextual cues to understand implicit meanings, while L2 learners often struggle with this process unless their auditory working memory capacity was sufficient. So, one of the main conclusions we can take out of this first study, it's the importance of auditory working memory capacity in inferential listening, particularly for L2 learners. So, this study suggests that building strong auditory memory could be crucial for improving listening inferential skills in second language contexts. Now let's move forward on our second study, a little bit related on listening anxiety, in which we will take a look how this study examines how pre-listening activities influence listening comprehension and listening anxiety. So in this study particularly, it was found that activating prior knowledge before listening tasks through activities like brainstorming or predicting content help reduce listening anxiety and improve both literal and inferential listening skills. So, one of the conclusions of the study included that structure pre-listening activities such as vocabulary preview or even setting goals for listening significantly enhance comprehension, especially in those tasks requiring reference inference. Other conclusion regarding the study has to do with pre-listening activities. They actually play a critical role in reducing anxiety and boosting confidence, and this ultimately impacts the ability to make inference. So the idea is that in these activities give learners the mental tools they need to approach listening tasks with clarity and focus. Now let's move forward into our study number 3. Here, researchers used a computerized dynamic assessment CDA tool to evaluate inferential listening comprehension in EFL learners. So, this study found that CDA, which provides immediate feedback on listening tasks, was especially effective in enhancing inferential listening. In this case, learners who receive real-time corrective feedback on their inferences were able to improve their listening skill faster than those who didn't. The immediate feedback allowed learners to correct errors in real time. This way, reinforcing the inferential process. One of the conclusions we can highlight from this study has to do with the importance of dynamic assessment in improving inferential skills. It means that real time feedback helps learners correct mistakes and refine their listening strategies, leading to a better understanding of implied meanings in spoken tense. Let's going to take a look at our study number 4. In here, we're going to take a deep dive into inferential reading skills, particularly how young adults recognize implicit and unstated content in both Italian, which is the first language, L1, and English, L2. So, in this particular study, it was found that learners in their L2 struggle more with recognizing unsteady meanings compared to their L1. However, over time and with practice, EFL learners improve their inferential reading abilities, especially when given strategies for recognizing keys like tone and context in reading materials. Some of the conclusions we can take out of this study has to do with the focus on reading, as it provides valuable perspective for listening. The study also highlights how inferential skills can be transferred across modalities, from reading to listening, and how strategies can help identify unstated content in reading can be adapted for listening comprehension. Last but not least, let's talk about study number 5. In this final study examines the role of peer tutoring integrated with KWL charts. Just to let you know, KWL stands for know, want to know, and learn in the developing of inferential skills. So this study found that when students engage in peer tutoring while filling out KWL charts before reading or listening tasks, they were better able to make inferences. The peer tutoring model encouraged collaborative thinking, while the KWL chart helped them connect prior knowledge with new content, and this combination led to improved inference making during listening and reading tasks. Some of the conclusion we can mention out of this study has to do with the power of collaborative learning and metacognitive strategies like KWL charts in promoting inferential skills. Peer tutoring not only strengthens listening comprehension, but also enhances learners' confidence in making inferences. So, how do these 5 studies come together? Let's going to take a look in a moment to identify how we came up with these common themes and patterns. So, several studies emphasize the importance of pre-listening activities or preparation, like activating prior knowledge or using scaffolding tools. Also, some studies, for example, the study on auditory working memory suggests that learners who can hold and manipulate auditory information are more successful at making inferences during listening tasks, and this may point the importance of developing cognitive skills alongside listening practice. For instance, in the study related on dynamic assessment and peer tutoring with KWL charts, it was highlighted the importance of instant feedback, where learners were provided with real time corrections, and these accelerate the ability to make inference and refine their listening strategies. Several studies also point to the benefits of collaborative learning, whether through peer tutoring or interactive tasks, which help learners practice making inferences and correct each other's mistakes. One interesting pattern in this transferability of skills across modalities. For instance, the study on reading skills show how inferential skills honed through reading could apply to listening tasks, suggesting that multimodal practice could be especially effective. So now if we make these studies related to the contribution it has for the project that I'm conducting so far, which is related to improving SENA learners' listening inferential skills through the use of voice screen. Well, these insights from the studies directly support the idea that interactive tools like voice screen can be highly effective in improving listening inferential skills. The dynamic feedback, for instance, provided by voice screen can give learners immediate correction after each listening task, and this has to do with the findings from the computerized dynamic assessment study. Additionally, the pre-listening strategies discussed in the studies, such as activating prior knowledge or schemata, could be integrated into voice screen exercises to further support learners' inferential skill. Not last but not least, there is also part of collaborative learning and peer support found to be effective in these five studies that can also be incorporated in the project that is being conducted. Perhaps for future version of the voice screen, um, it can offer features for learners to discuss their inferences with peers, and in this way, it can improve their confidence and depth of understanding. Well, in order to wrap up and finish this podcast, it is very important to remember that these five studies give us a very deep understanding into the strategies and tools that can help learners develop better inferential listening skills, whether it is through pre-listening preparation, peer tutoring, or dynamic assessment. These strategies can transform how we approach teaching listening in language learning. And I hope that you found these studies very valuable, especially for those of you working in this very interesting learning journey, which is improving your listening skills, especially those related to inferences. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope to see you in another podcast. Bye bye.